So in today's video we are heading to the world famous Dungeness. It's a legendary sea fishing mark, and I wanted to see if this historic coastal landscape still holds up for us saltwater anglers. It really is a special place, and there's even been reports of the elusive codling being caught. So amongst some typical ever-changing British weather, we experience some mysterious nods on the rod tips and breakage to deal with, but there's plenty of coastal life and fishing to explore along the way. Join me as we venture into Kent to fish one of the country's must-visit sea fishing venues. So part of the reason I've chosen Dungeness today is to get out of the wind really. It does provide a good shelter from southwesterlies, one of the few places that does on the south coast, because what will happen is the wind drives straight in off the sea, runs up the channel, but you've really got a little peninsula here, and you can tuck yourself away behind the boats. All that history, still have to be a bit practical here because we've tucked ourselves away out this wind behind this boat, and it's just that little bit easier, isn't it, getting out of the wind. There's a guy down there, he's getting blasted by it, but luckily the bank's big enough here to give us a little bit of protection. It just sort of wears you out, you know, like it becomes tiring. If you're going to be here for a while, might as well make it easier on yourself. So yeah, what I'm doing here, this is called a spool cap, the thing I'm putting back on, but it's very easy for the line to get tangled. And this leader's been on here for a fair few casts, so it's always worth checking it. You see it's a little bit curly, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to stick a rod in with some lug and get this first bit of the flooding tide, which means the tide's coming in. So reading this water here a little bit, panning round to the east, you can see it gets shallower, the waves here, and then about here you might just be able to pick out some lugworm diggers on that massive expanse of flat water on the inside. Probably not a bad day for lug digging today. The tides are big, they're sat out the wind there, there's a fair few amount of them. But we've got our worms today ready to go, and then I'm looking at the water here. What I want really is the patches of deeper water. Where the wave breaks, generally that's shallower water, isn't it? But I just want to pop this into some deeper water for now, and this tide will come up nicely up this shingle bank. That said, it looks a little bit interesting. It does look a little bit more interesting, doesn't it, up there? You see where that guy is? I wonder. These conditions will change, of course, as the tide comes in. We'll have a little start here. I want to give him a bit of space. Yeah, just coming up with put the lug on, and that's rusty, that one. So I'm gonna have to swap it out. Keep some spares just in case. Sort of turning my back here, just trying to put on these cascade hooks so they rely on the tension of the springs and the weight. So you can usually put on gutted worms on the hook without using the baiting needle, but it's certainly something I need more practice on. As you've seen, you don't want all those juices squirting everywhere, so the baiting needle can be invaluable. Make sure there's not a little bend in it like this one. With the wind sort of busting right to left, which is east to west for us, we've also got waves cutting on here. I've tried to get my back to wind. If we do hit into something decent, it's going to go sort of right the way down tide. Rod's bouncing around a little bit there. There's plenty of weed in the water, but we'll have a little feel, see if that's a fish on there. In these conditions, you know, something like a dogfish would make it bounce around. So lovely. Look at that sky. I think that's just waves that are plucking at the line. You see the rod tip? Oops. Oops. Hey, it's a flounder. Oh, that's not a bad size either. It's sort of quite fat. You do get that this time of year. They've certainly been feeding up. Lovely, it's got a bit of weight to it. Quite happy with that. Right. Let's put him back. Well, I'm watching that. I mean, look at that weather. Look at it. It was a grey day, now it's all blue. There's storm clouds over to the right. It's just different weather everywhere. I love it. It's great. Anyway, what we're looking at here is that rod bending over, and that's line hitting that weed, surface weed, I think. The flounder, they do take a moving bait. I don't know whether the weed is, yeah, I mean at times it might be lifting that weight up. A rolling lead might work well today, but there's so much weed it might end up in a big pile of weed, so we'll stick with what we're doing. My now comedy rod, which is missing the rod tip, so that can be cut down for a little conger close in rod, I guess. I've got about 8 rods like that now, broken tips. About eight broken rod tips now. Anyone would think it was me, not the rod. I think it's me, isn't it? Well, there you go, a little bit of sun on my face. There's a lot of movement with these other anglers. Always keeping an eye out to see if they've caught. They seem to be rushing around a bit. Maybe they're catching me. And we've now got some anglers down this way. So the forecast did say sunny for about an hour, and then the rain's going to hit. I love this water conditions. So much bird life here as well. It's hard to see out here, but we've got, I mean, I think they're great northern divers, maybe. Certainly great crested grebes out there, and there are terns of all sorts. Cormorants, obviously, would look like all the gulls. Yeah, good old Dungeness. bit small, so we're going to put him back. Lovely to see codling, isn't it? Lovely fish. Well, I don't know if you remember, but that was a really short cast. Literally just plonked it in there, anticipating bass with the big baits. So that codling was right in close. Now we've got a little rainstorm. Love the weather. And it's a sunny day. Well, I always like to have a little forage around. I think a little bit of plastic waste there. Rig holder, is it? Winder. Now, what on earth is this? Is that some sort of tracker? It's got like electric on it. For some reason, I think that might be something that's attached to the nets, but a skull probably sheep, would that be? Maybe. You get all sorts washed up here at Dungeness, you know, all cockles, mussels, lots of it comes in fresh. This is obviously stuff that's not further up on the tide, but it is always worth checking, see what there is. Old gaper clam, I think. Shell. Again, I mean, there's lots of diving birds down there. That is, I think that's a cormorant. There's definitely, I think they're great crested grebes. It's quite hard to see when you're useless at identifying birds. Almost two colours out there, bright blue, and then inside it's all really cloudy water, which is good. Maybe a chance of a sole. What you can see here is obviously that tide. As soon as you lift the weight up or get a fish, it takes it off down tide and it ends up on the beach, you know, 100 yards down to your left. But the grip leads will still hold bottom for us. With these rigs for the lug, they've been made up so there's little bait stops. It stops the lug flying off the hook, keeps the bait quite neat. I don't always do it, but it is quite a good thing to utilise if you've got it on your rigs. Just coming up to high tide now. Whiting is starting to bite by the looks of it. Often happens here at this stage of the tide, whiting and dogfish come along, but we haven't had a dogfish yet. Any other fish you might confuse a whiting with would be a pouting or maybe a pollock. We don't tend to get pollock here. One good way to know it's a whiting is they have teeth. You open its mouth, it's got little sharp teeth in there. Buried by the shingle, not a big fish. What's happened here, and this is a problem I suppose with these continental rods, or certainly rods with tit rings, get stuck with the weed. So if you keep winding you're going to snap the line. So even though we've got something on here, I thought we've got to get that weed off first. You can drag it by hands up on the beach, that's the other way. So we started this video talking about the history of Dungeness, and it's very much alive with catching a codling, I suppose. Never going to get those incredible days where people were catching double-figure cod after double-figure cod. Or will we? I wonder. And you're going to get good periods of fishing and bad periods of fishing. So hopefully we've had a little bit of sea fishing nostalgia here for some of you that might have fished here before. If you fished Dungeness, or if you've got any stories from the 60s and 70s, I absolutely love those. It's when the fishing was really good, wasn't it? But I'll take that today. We even had a bass, and that flounder was nice, wasn't it? Yeah, a really good day. I think the conditions helped us. There's a lot of churn in that sea. It's all churned up, nice waves crashing in. Maybe that's why we got the bass, eh? There's what's that species wise? Oh, a nice little pout. See, I don't know. I think I've had a good session because I've had, well, 7 species, isn't it? 7, yeah, which is pretty good. But there's a lot of rods out and they're staying the course, so I don't know, maybe maybe they could have got double figure cod, I don't know. So maybe they could have got double figure cod, who knows. But look at this, no, it's a summer day. Just about to see the train in the distance. You see that? Little steam train, miniature.